Imagine waking up in the dead of night to a sudden violent crash. Water is rushing into your boat. The wind is howling. Your heart is pounding. You scramble for supplies, barely managing to grab a few essentials before you are thrown into the dark, endless sea. Now you're alone, no land in sight, no rescue coming, just you, a tiny raft, and the vast, merciless ocean stretching in every direction. This was the terrifying reality for Steven Callahan, a man who survived an unimaginable 76 days adrift in the Atlantic Ocean after his boat sank in a freak accident. His journey is one of extreme endurance, mental fortitude, and raw human survival. But how did he do it? How did he battle starvation, dehydration, sharks, and the crushing loneliness of the open sea? And most importantly, what can we learn from his experience? This is not just a survival story, it's a testament to the power of human resilience. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll gain life-saving survival lessons that could one day make the difference between life and death. Steven Callahan was no ordinary sailor. He was a skilled boat designer, navigator, and adventurer. He had spent years studying the ocean, learning its patterns, and developing a deep respect for its unpredictable nature. In January 1982, Callahan set sail from the Canary Islands in his small 21-foot sailboat, Napoleon Solo. His goal? To cross the Atlantic Ocean alone and reach the Caribbean. It was an ambitious journey, but he was prepared, or so he thought. For the first few days, everything went according to plan. The wind was steady, the waters calm. But just 1 week into his voyage, fate had other plans. In the middle of the night, as Callahan lay asleep, he was suddenly jolted awake by a deafening crash. Something had struck his boat with incredible force. Within moments, water was rushing into the cabin, flooding everything. In a panic, he grabbed a flashlight, his emergency ditch bag, and a small inflatable life raft. He barely had time to process what was happening before Napoleon Solo began sinking beneath the waves. One moment, he had a sturdy vessel carrying him across the ocean. The next, he was alone in a tiny raft, surrounded by nothing but water. It was just him versus the Atlantic. As the sun rose, Callahan assessed his situation. He had a few key survival items: a spear gun for fishing, a solar still to produce fresh water, a small supply of emergency rations, a repair kit to patch up the raft. But no amount of preparation could change the terrifying reality. He was adrift in the middle of the ocean, with no clear idea of when or if he would be rescued. The first few days were spent battling sheer panic and exhaustion. The sun was relentless, blistering his skin. At night, the cold was unbearable, leaving him shivering in the darkness, and the hunger. It was already gnawing at his stomach. He needed food, fast. Water was his first major challenge. He had a solar still, a device that used sunlight to evaporate seawater, leaving behind drinkable water. But it only produced small amounts, barely enough to survive. Dehydration set in quickly. His lips cracked, his throat burned, his muscles weakened. Hunger was next. His emergency rations ran out within a week. He had no choice but to hunt for food. With his spear gun, he attempted to catch fish, but it was far harder than he expected. The fish were fast, his aim was slow, and his energy was draining. After repeated failures, he finally speared a dorado, a type of fish that became his lifeline. He learned to eat it raw, drinking the fish's blood for extra hydration. It was disgusting, but it kept him alive. Days turned into weeks. His raft began to break down. The seams leaked, the patches failed every day. He fought to keep it afloat every night. The wind howled, rocking the fragile raft like a toy in a bathtub. Then came the sharks. At first, they circled from a distance, but as time passed, they grew bolder. They bumped the raft, snapping at his fish. One night, a particularly aggressive shark rammed the raft so hard it nearly flipped. Callahan had to use every ounce of his strength to fight them off with his spear gun. But his biggest enemy was not the sharks. It was his own mind. Isolation plays tricks on the brain. Callahan found himself talking to the ocean, to the sky, to the raft itself. He hallucinated. He saw boats in the distance that weren't there. He dreamed of food, of warmth, of human voices. But each time he opened his eyes, he was met with the same endless blue horizon. Yet, he refused to give up. He clung to a single thought: survive one more day, just one more day. By day 60, Callahan was a walking skeleton, his body ravaged by starvation and dehydration. But then, a sign of hope. Seagulls. Seagulls meant land was near. He fought to stay alert, desperately scanning the horizon. Then, on day 76, a group of fishermen spotted his raft near Guadeloupe. After 2.5 months lost at sea, Steven Callahan had cheated death. Callahan's story is more than just survival. It's a lesson in human resilience. Here's what we can learn from him. Preparation is key. His survival bag saved his life. Adaptability is everything. He found new ways to get food, water, and protection. Mental toughness is the difference between life and death. He refused to give in, even when his body was failing. Nature is unpredictable and unforgiving. Respect it and always be ready for the worst. Steven Callahan's 76-day ordeal is one of the greatest survival stories ever told. His book, Adrift, 76 Days Lost at Sea, has become a must-read for survivalists and sailors alike. So let me ask you, could you survive 76 days lost at sea? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you love deep dive survival stories, make sure to subscribe because I've got more incredible tales coming soon. Until next time, stay curious, stay prepared, and never stop fighting.